who you wound up supporting in the election, presidential election.
None of your business.
None of my business?
None of your business.
In a world dominated by political correctness and divisive narratives, some voices dare to challenge the status quo. One such voice as Denzel Washington, a Hollywood legend who isn't afraid to speak his mind on race politics and the real issues facing society today. Today, we explore how Denzel Washington dismantles the so-called woke culture with wisdom, clarity, and brutal honesty. Let's take a closer look at his thoughts and the deeper message behind them.
What do you think about that?
I don't have to think about it. I've lived it. I've been the guy at the Oscars without my name being called. I've been the guy at the Oscars when my name is called. I've been the guy at the Oscars when everybody thought they was going to call my name and they didn't. So I've lived it.
So what would you say to the people who are looking at this process and saying it's unfair?
Yeah, and so what? You gonna give up? If you're looking for an excuse, you'll find one.
In race.
You can find it wherever you like. You can't live like that. You just do the best you can do.
Denzel sets the tone by addressing a question about discrimination in the Oscars. His message is clear: justifications and excuses are easy to find, but progress is only achieved through persistence and hard work. Denzel's response here is a direct challenge to the victimhood mentality often encouraged by woke culture. Instead of dwelling on discrimination, he emphasizes personal responsibility and resilience. His message is clear: while injustices exist, success comes from persistence, not blaming the system. This is an empowering outlook that shifts the conversation from feeling oppressed to overcoming challenges through hard work. Building on this idea of personal responsibility and resilience, Denzel's thoughts on race and culture offer a deeper perspective on how we can bridge divides without relying on surface-level solutions.
So why did he need a black director? Could a white director not have?
It's not color, it's culture.
Explain the difference, because I think we're
Steven
in a space
Spielberg
right
did Schindler's List.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Scorsese did Goodfellas, right? Steven Spielberg could direct Goodfellas. Martin Scorsese probably could have done a good job with Schindler's List, but they're cultural differences. You know, I know, you know, we all know what it is when a hot comb hits your hair on a Sunday morning, what it smells like. That's a cultural difference, not just a color difference.
The analogy of Spielberg
directing Schindler's List and Scorsese directing Goodfellas speaks volumes. It's not just about who's behind the camera, but what experiences they bring to the story. This perspective goes against the grain of woke culture, which tends to focus heavily on identity markers. Like race, Denzel's approach shows that cultural understanding, not simply race, is key to telling authentic stories and making real connections. This focus on culture, rather than race, naturally leads into Denzel's critique of how information and misinformation affects our worldview. In a world overloaded with opinions, how do we find the truth?
So what is the long-term effect of too much information? The polarization of the electorate? A meaner spiritedness?
And false information as well, because the whole fake news thing.
Pick one. It's not just one. That's the flavor of the day. Every day is something else. People have to understand, are you using your device or is your device using you? Can you put it down? Can you turn it off?
You're talking about literally the places people get their information from.
I don't care what information. Pick one. Phone, television. You know, it used to be news. Now it's opinion news. Oh, glasses. We have 3 experts on the right, 3 on the left. Let's discuss. Ooh, light bulbs. We have 3 experts on the right. That's not news. That's opinion news. Well, over and over and over. Cycle. What is the long-term effect of too much information? If you're sitting there and you're thinking it's the gospel, what I'm saying to people is, to all of us, I'm not knocking the phone. What I'm saying is we have to understand, we have to at least ask ourselves, around the world, you here in England, wherever you are, what is it doing to us?
Denzel's message is clear: we need to be more critical of the information we consume. This is a direct hit at the woke movement, which often thrives on viral outrage and quick opinions rather than thoughtful analysis. Denzel urges us to step back, think critically, and not let ourselves be controlled by the media's endless cycle of noise. As we reflect on how information shapes our perceptions, Denzel brings us back to the importance of accountability, not just in ourselves, but in the leaders we choose to represent us.
You know, I think this is what I think. I think we as Americans better learn to unite. I think we as Americans need to put our elected officials' feet to the fire and demand that they work together, or they won't get back in office. You know, in this age we live in, this accelerated information age, we're getting further and further apart. We're not getting together, we're getting further and further and further apart. Everybody can't be right. But I think this is an opportunity, actually. You see how people are being energized and protesting and all that. But I think this is an opportunity for us to look at ourselves as a country and say, are we together, really? And are we holding our elected officials accountable to making sure that they're working together? Not just, hey, you're on your side, I win what I win, you win what you win. Because this is what is happening. This is what's happening. And God only knows where it's going.
Rather than embracing the US versus them mentality often promoted by woke culture, Denzel calls for unity. He reminds us that change won't come from simply being loud or divisive. It comes from holding leaders accountable and working together in a culture that often pushes polarization. Denzel advocates for unity and accountability. He sees this moment as an opportunity for reflection and asks the hard question, are we really united, or are we just pretending to be while tearing each other apart? Denzel takes this critique of personal responsibility even further, turning the mirror back on us and our families. If we want to see real change, it has to start from within.
I think it's more important to make headway in our own house. By the time the system comes into play, the damage is done. They're not locking up 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know, I was in Chicago a couple of 3-4 weeks ago, and we saw these little kids on bikes with masks on the side of their head, like 5 or 6 of them. And the driver said, yeah, they're little yummies. I said, who? He said, little yummies. Look up, Google Lil Yummy. Lil Yummy was an 11-year-old murderer.
Wow.
And you look at his picture, you'll see the headshot of him, and he's like this. And he got murdered at 11 by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Who's doing life now, and a 16-year-old.
That makes no sense.
You blame the system? Where was his father? It starts in the house. It starts in the home. And yeah, well, my father got locked up. Well, where was his father?
Yeah.
You know, like I did talk about my 3 closest friends, and they did, 15 to 25. One did 28, this and that. I was the only one of the 3 that had a father in my life, even though my parents were together. But I still had a father who was a gentle man and a good example.
Yeah.
And they didn't. We can blame the system if we want, but they didn't lock any of us up at 7.
Yeah.
We were all doing enough to get locked up at 13. My parents sent me in another direction. They didn't have anybody to help them, and they kept doing what they was doing, and the system got them. So